being empathetic is a thing that was talked earlier by one of the speakers, and I'm not going to scare you enough more about what cyber does and what the dangers of using a healthcare facility. You'll be scared even if you have a bad cold, you won't go to the doctor's office anymore after hearing all this, right? So my perspective today is going to be a little different. I'm going to be talking about how the technology is changing the landscape of healthcare. And as Ronnie said, my name is Mahesh Kalva. I represent a company called Leidos. And I was going to show a video, but I'm going to skip it, but just give you a little bit of background of what our company is. We are about a $10 billion company, 33,000 employees. It got formulated with the merger of Lockheed Martin's IT division with a company called Leidos, which was SAIC for the people who keep tabs on all the company mergers. So our healthcare division is about $1.6 billion. The one thing that is not factored in is we also run a large R&D facility for the government, which is the National Cancer Institute, which is about an additional $600 million a year. About $2.2 billion. As you can see, to manage a company of this magnitude, we need a lot of talent. And we hire a lot of military veterans within the company, PhDs across the board, master's people, 7,000 to 6,900 of them, and almost 50% of our employee population have STEM degrees. And the clearance is one thing for working in the government in the United States. You need cleared people. As you can see, 90% of our business is again in America. Some of the facts that we do, we manage 60% of world's air traffic. Believe it or not, every time the plane lands safely, you should thank us. And from the enhancing the healthcare aspect of it, we are implementing the largest electronic health record in the world, which is for the Department of Defense in the United States, 9.6 million people, service members in it. So we are developing drones to scan the seas, to the oceans, preventing, one of the speakers talked about the connecting cars. We are preventing collisions using some of the technology that has been developed within our company. Analyzing for the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, 93 million fingerprints in 6 minutes. A system that was deployed by FBI was a system developed by our company. Enough of us. Purely from a health perspective, we, as I earlier mentioned, quite a bit of revenue, but 90% of the VA backlogs, veterans, anything happens to the veteran is a big important, straight away goes to the congressional offices, so that is a big issue in America, and we helped reduce the claims backlog by 90% to the VA. We support about 150 hospitals, process $600 billion of Social Security Administration claims. 900 hospitals and health systems have Leidos presence in them, and I talked about the FFRDC that we do. Lot of different capabilities, primary customers, DHA, Army Corps of Engineers, Veterans Affairs, hospitals and health systems. I'm not going to bore you with the list, but let's jump into the challenge of health. Guy talked up quite a few of these things. I have some more numbers. If you're a numbers person, you'll love this. $3 trillion, starting at 9 o'clock, if you will, $3 trillion is what's spent on healthcare in the United States. We in America are number one in spending, but our life expectancy is number 27 amongst the OECD nations. So we are not doing something, we are not doing right. We are, as a matter of fact, on per capita, we spend $10,000 per person across the country, every single person, $10,000. I looked up World Bank statistics. Israel spends $3,500 per person here. And a country like India, originally I'm from India, spends $75. So there is a huge gap. And obviously, if you think $75 versus $10,000, the people in America should be living forever. But the age difference, the average number of years that they live, in America it's 71, and in India it's 68. And obviously, you were wondering what's the average age in Israel. I checked that out too. It's 84. So you're doing something right. So leaving that alone, some of the other things we talk about cybersecurity. There was earlier a speaker who talked about this. Your social security number or your national ID in Israel fetches $1 in a black market versus your medical record fetches $500 in the black market. So you can see the importance of cybersecurity. I've been talking to some of the customers here, and we have noticed that cybersecurity always is an afterthought. Again, as I said, I promised you that I'm not going to scare you more, but it shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be part of the ecosystem, part of the thought process, part of the application. When it's being put together, you should start thinking about cyber. Enough said on that. The fraud is another big challenge in healthcare, especially in America. US government spends about $106 billion in fraud per year. So that is something that has to be handled. And we talked about the cost. Earlier speaker talked about the cost is a major challenge. 57% of bankruptcy is related to medical expenses in America. So something got to give, right? So I'm painting the challenge here, and it exacerbates the complexity of the healthcare system even further. But you could call it complexity, you could call it as a challenge, but I'm sitting in the spark area, the cyber spark. So I would look at it as an opportunity of to the sky's the limit from the opportunity perspective. You're talking about 7 billion people on the planet, 3 million plus doctors worldwide. You're talking about thousands of hospitals worldwide. 6,000 prescription medicines that are there, 4,000 procedures and operations, and don't even talk about the supplements and herbs and et cetera, right? And we are in a hyper-connected world. By 2020, the number is very conservative, 50 billion connected devices. Any device could penetrate into the larger web, right? 50 billion devices. And the size of the global market is $7.4 trillion. So as I said, the opportunity is tremendous. With all the mindset in Israel right now, I've visited several startups. This is the area, guys, you got to focus in, and there's tremendous potential. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this is something that you should be seriously looking at from the perspective of what's happening in this university, what's happening in the CyberSpark Center. Got to be more innovation. There is tremendous room for the innovation to come to solve this problem. So solving the problem obviously is to identify those technology trends. Recognizing the trends and the inflection points is important to bring to any business, and healthcare is that prime. In the last 5-10 years, you have seen tremendous amount of changes in the user interface, in the IT delivery from the standpoint of data center PCs. We are always talk about clouds, browsers, mobile devices, and whatnot. Information and communication, no one talks about anymore about email implementations. We are always talking about the social media, app stores, and what have you. Innovation using models, enterprise. Before it used to be in my office, I used to get a new gadget, go home and show to the family, wow, look at this fantastic device that my company gave. And that paradigm changed in the last 5 years. Every time there is a new gadget that I buy in an electronic store, I go back to my CIO and say, what the heck, why aren't we using this? So the paradigm has shifted. The consumerism is changing the enterprise a lot more than what it used to before. Databases and business intelligence has moved into the big data, and I'm going to touch on some of these topics, how it is changing the health IT aspect of it. The mega trends in health IT, and unfortunately being one of the last speakers, most of the topics that you are going to talk has been already spoken, but I'll still try to be informative for you guys. The care delivery and the drug development is one of the major trend that is going on. We are talking about electronic health records, but it's generation 3 electronic health records. I've seen some hospitals here in Israel still using some really old technology. Yes, it is cheap, but it's economical. But you have to think about the emerging trends and how you're going to have that ability and robustness with that Visual Basic technology or .NET technology. You have to think about that aspect of it. Telemedicine and virtual care apps. We talked about, the previous speaker talked about the telemedicine. Genomics and precision medicine. This is a tremendous area. The first genome that was mapped costed $1 billion to map, and right now you can get a genome map for $1,000. So there's a huge potential there with the genome mapping, and that's where the electronic health record combination with your genome mapping, you can be treated as you versus, well, it worked in the clinical trials on this 500 people, 5,000 people, it could potentially work on the 7 billion population. That's not going to happen, right? So this genomics and precision medicine is going to entirely change the thought process. 3D bioprinting, how many of you heard of this, right? In very near future, you'll be seeing if you have a kidney failure, your kidney could be printed, bioprinted in the lab, and it could be transplanted, and your body is not going to reject it because it's coming out of your own tissue. Nanomedicine, this is another cool technology, especially in the cancer side of it, and Leidos and my previous company, Lockheed Martin, has invested a tremendous amount of money in this. The thought process is with one of the applications of nanomedicine is usually the side effects. You kill a lot of good cells with the cancerous cells. What if you put nano directions, basically using ways in your body, right? Going at attacking the bad cell only and not impacting the good cells around it. So that is some of the implications of the advances that are going in the health IT side. From the hospital operations, this is where the industrial engineering is coming into hospitals, into healthcare. Patient throughput and capacity management. One of the biggest challenges in America, as you saw, is like it was pay by service before. Now it has changed to pay by outcomes, right? So if a person comes into the hospital, whether it did not matter how many number of x-rays were taken, how many tests were done, the government or the CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid, was paying, reimbursing for every dollar that was spent by the hospital. They've changed that methodology now. They are saying, we are going to pay you by the surgery, right? If you're coming for a knee replacement or a hip replacement, this is how much we are going to give you, $10,000, and that's it. Whether you do it in $8,000 or $6,000, then you make the profit of $4,000 or $2,000, versus if you spend $15,000, then you're going on a loss. So all the CFOs in these hospitals, when you talk to them, they are talking about efficiency. How do you get the people in a I hate to say this, like in a factory, right? Industrial engineering aspect of it. That's where the efficiency is coming together, and that's where a lot of innovation is happening in the health IT aspect of it. Supply chain, patient financial systems, the billing systems. This is where all the paper billing systems are gone. It got to become paperless. This is how it's getting there. The consumer-facing IT, this is where the healthcare assistive robots are coming together. And one of the things is in the near future, you'll see that the mundane jobs within the hospitals. Something going on?
You want to see a short movie?
No, that's okay. Sorry about that. The healthcare assistive robots, like think of the nurses that are going into the hospital rooms and delivering the pills. That is going to change. The robots are going to give you the small robots walking around and give you the pill, make you laugh as a patient. I mean, yeah, you need human interface, but once in a while, maybe not 3 times a day a nurse comes, only once a day the nurse comes, and in between, yes? 5 minutes? Okay, I'm going to wrap up fast. In the analytics space, descriptive analytics, what happened? This is the big data aspect of it. Diagnostic analytics, why did it happen? Predictive analytics, what will happen? And prescriptive is where there's a lot of research going on. This is where you're talking about the genome medicine, the merger of electronic health records and genomics comes in to predict what's going to happen to you based on your lifestyle, based on your EHR, based on your genome mapping. And you address. The startup challenge is, Guy talked about this, startups are challenging the status quo. innovation via technology. This is where the retail clinics, the micro hospitals are popping up. Telemedicine is an underutilized area, and that is one of the things that is growing big time in America and all over the world, actually. This is the fifth bullet is my favorite. Emergency room without leaving your living room. House calls and community paramedics. What's happening is, instead of making that 911 call or whatever the equivalent of that is in Israel is, rather than an ambulance coming to the house and you shipped to the hospital and what have you, instead of that, a community paramedic comes into your house and basically deals with you, treats you in your living room, in the comfort of your house. And that's changing the thought process. Even if you reduce the number of trips for an older patient from 10 times a year to 3 times a year, that's a huge savings, and that's patient satisfaction. Smart implantables, we talked about that, and insurance models are being innovated really fast. So I'm going to wrap up this. You have a tendency to always, doctor will see you now, right? I'm not sure if that's the sentiment here. You go into a doctor's office, you make an appointment, wait for 20 to 30 minutes. The doctor comes in, he's reading the chart, he's basically typing into his laptop, barely conversing with you, barely discussing with you. He finally says, based on your charts, based on what I see, your numbers have gone up. He prescribes you blood pressure medicine or diabetic medicine, and you wait in the line, get your drugs, and walk away. And you, back in your mind, you're thinking, as this slide says, I want to be able to discuss my depression with my doctor. I feel unhealthy and without the energy to enjoy and play with my grandkids. That's what an older person is thinking about, and that's not what the doctors are providing you. Versus in the new paradigm, the patient will see you now, is the concept that is coming with the merger of technology. This is where the population health, this is not only technology, but the process approach of it, the business reengineering. I'm talking about healthcare reengineering here. So works with a population health social worker, sets up an appointment to meet with the healthcare team. Then the healthcare team is not just the doctor. You're talking about the nutritionalist, a health coach, a personal trainer, and a nurse. Provides a health gadget. You can wear a gadget like this, monitoring your heartbeat, monitoring your glucose levels, and what have you, and proactively watches the signs remotely. And during Thanksgiving, you tend to eat a lot in America, and the numbers spike, and the nurse gives you a FaceTime call and says, hey, your numbers have spiked. You might probably have to increase the dosage of your medicine. Let me call into your remote pharmacy, and the medicine is arrived at your home. Now you're thinking, do I really need to see the doctor? So the paradigm is entirely shifting. And you might be wondering, in the new paradigm, it might cost you a lot of money. But if you look at it, the statistics done on this, cost per year is $25,000 in the old model, and in the new model, it's $10,000. Okay? So that is what's happening in the healthcare. That is where the merger of technology and healthcare is happening. Wherever I've highlighted some of the things in purple is what the technology is bringing to the healthcare market. And needless to say, enough people have spoken to about cybersecurity, so I'm not going to talk about that. So that's my talk, and if you guys have any questions, I'll be here for the rest of the day, and we can certainly discuss more. Thank you.